I want you to try something for me. Take a sip of this. What is it? A human drink. It's called root beer. I don't know. Come on. Aren't you just a little bit curious? What do you think? It's vile! I know. It's so bubbly and cloying and happy, just like the Federation. But you know what's really frightening? If you drink enough of it, you begin to like it. It's insidious, just like the Federation. Oh, hello. I didn't notice you there. Welcome to the Heir's Lair. I'm your host, aspiring author Jonathan Taylor. Today I am breaking away from the promise I made in the description of my last video, because for some reason I cannot keep my word on this channel. And I will be doing a book review instead. A book review of Christmas at the Vintage Bookshop of Memories by Elizabeth Holland. A sequel to Vintage Bookshop of Memories by the same Elizabeth Holland. Calling it a sequel is actually kind of erroneous. It's more like a spin-off. There is a main plot from Vintage Bookshop of Memories that is continued in this book. However, it is not the main plot of this book. It's rather the most prominent side story of the book. The main plot instead focuses on the best friend of the protagonist from the last book, namely on Katie Wooster, who, when she first arrives in the in Ivy Hatch, the village where this series now takes place, is she just lost her boyfriend, lost her job, and lost her home. So she's down on her luck, really, and and on hard times. And she's come to Ivy Hatch in order to get some assistance from her best friend from university, namely the main protagonist of Vintage Bookshop of Memories, Prue Clement, or Clemente, or however you're supposed to say it. I'll give you the TLDW first. It's a good book. It's a nice, cute, fluffy romance, something you can just read over the course of an afternoon and enjoy a few hours to yourself. I'm not a speed reader by any means, yet even I managed to finish it in like 2, maybe 3 hours. So it's definitely an afternoon's read, and it is very, very enjoyable. If you like romances, then go ahead and pre-order it. Link in the description. If you liked the first book, Vintage Bookshop of Memories, then also go ahead and pre-order it. I can guarantee you'll enjoy it. Now on to the actual review in and of itself. Like I said, Prue Clemente, the actual the protagonist of the first book, is still in this book. Is in this book as well. However, for obvious reasons, we don't spend as much time with her here as we would have spent in there. Regardless, I still find her to be a very interesting, engaging, and I will say complex character, complex, well-defined character, with her own backstory, her own personality, her own likes, her own desires, her own expectations, and her own, not exactly fears, but things she wants to avoid. So yeah, she's well done. However, the star of this show this book is definitely the new arrival, Katie Wooster. And we get to see a lot of the book from her perspective. We spend a lot of time in her head, and we understand what her personality is like, what her style is like, what she expects, what she enjoys, what she's good at, what she wants, what she wants both to achieve and to avoid, what her sense of conflict is. So she is definitely the standout of this book, and the friendship between these two is very believable, very, very engaging. The other characters in this book are fine for the most part. I can't really say any of them are boring or annoying. However, they don't really fulfill much of a role aside from the slots and places they're meant to fill and meant to hold. Regardless, they hold their places and fill their slots well enough that I can't really complain about them. They are overall very well done characters. Of the side characters, pretty sure a lot of them also showed up in the first book, which is why I won't mention it. I don't want to spoil I don't want to spoil that book while reviewing this one. However, I will mention from the side characters that there is one particular standout, namely Austin, Katie's love interest. We also get to see his personality, his backstory, his likes, his expectations, his conflict, and overall, I really found him very well put together. I found the romance between him and Katie to be quite interesting, even if a bit sped up. But yeah, overall he also does his job well. The high point of this book, though, however, is definitely the description. Are definitely the descriptions. Elizabeth has a very interesting writing style. She is very vivid and very rich in her descriptions. She very much wants to bring your senses into the book and immerse you that way. Also, she has a pretty good idea of how to guide the reader, of knowing what she should show. And however, the thing she shines in is definitely the descriptions. You have the buildings, the people, their clothes, makeup, and also decorations, because the story is set at Christmas. So you get a lot of them. So you also get a lot of that. And you also get a very good sense of where everything is and how everything interacts. What the story, what the history behind everything is. It's very engaging, and it makes and it adds a lot of character to the actual setting of Ivy Hatch, almost to the point of making this village, Ivy Hatch, into a character in and of itself, which is actually a really hard thing to do as a writer, probably one of the hardest. I could make a video about that. Anyway. So yeah, I actually enjoy that, even though it's quite a bit different from what I generally do. So where does this book fail? Well, I already mentioned that this romance kind of feels accelerated a bit, but really I think I'm willing to let it slide because this is, after all, displaying a fantasy. A thing that constantly took me out of the book, to be honest, is the amount of British colloquialisms that get employed. I actually consider myself pretty well versed in British culture, but reading this, I realized that there are a lot of words I didn't really understand, because I actually know a lot about British history and British broadcast humor, or more precisely, English broadcast humor. So I'm really only getting a very limited perspective on what it's actually like. I probably shouldn't criticize her for that, and given I've been a beta reader, it's pretty likely she already changed that. So yeah, still it affected my experience with the book. Another thing that really affected my experience with the book is the fact that there are not constants, but there are uh, there are quite a few references to the last book, to Vintage Bookshop of Memories. They are not constant, but they are uh, pretty consistent, and they always provide the same effect. As in, I'm taken out of the story and wondering, well, what happened there? How did the event that gets described transpire? How did she solve it eventually? So, or how did it get solved? And yeah, that kind of thing. I think it happened few times too many for my taste, and it's taking me personally out. And again, I'm me. Others might have different experiences with the book as it was. Regardless, I still thought it was a pretty nice book overall, because the strengths are still pretty dynamic and pretty visible and pretty well employed all throughout the story. So for that, I think I'm gonna give it a rating of 3 stars out of 5. It doesn't really go beyond the confines of nice cute fluffy romance, but what it does within these confines is actually very good. So for that, I'm gonna give it 3 out of 5 stars. Thank you very much for your attention. In particular, I'd like to thank Elizabeth herself for allowing me to make a video review on this book. I am now looking forward to being turned into a character in the next book in the series and constantly getting roasted by every other character. Because for some reason I think she might do it. If you enjoyed this video, then go ahead and give it a like. If you want to see when the next video comes out, then go ahead and subscribe. Maybe also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will require its users to do. Until next time, I am Jonathan Taylor, and this has been The Ayer's Lair.